She carefully chose a sperm donor, ready to become a mother on her own terms. But one devastating mistake changed everything. She was mistakenly inseminated with the sperm of Adrian Cole, a powerful billionaire who has already chosen his surrogate. Will she take on the hospital in court, or will she be forced to face the man who now holds a stake in her future? Find out in this gripping story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. Sophia Reynolds had always dreamed of being a mother. At 32, she had a stable job as a marketing strategist, a cozy apartment in New York, and a heart full of love to give. What she didn't have was a man she could trust to start a family with. So, after months of contemplation, she walked into one of the most prestigious fertility clinics in the country and requested a sperm donor. She had no idea that one clerical error would turn her world upside down. Across town, Adrian Cole was a man used to having control over everything. As the CEO of Coletech, a billion-dollar tech empire, he had built his success with ruthless precision. But there was one thing even his wealth and power couldn't control: time. At 38, he had everything: money, power, influence, but no family of his own. His empire demanded too much of him, and love had never been a priority. However, he had always wanted an heir, someone to carry on his legacy. That's why he had gone through the process of surrogacy. He had chosen the best fertility clinic, arranged for a surrogate, and signed every legal document possible. He had no intentions of falling in love or playing house. He only wanted his child. But when the clinic director called him in for an urgent discussion, he knew something had gone horribly wrong. Sophia nearly dropped her phone when the clinic's director requested an immediate meeting. She sat frozen in her kitchen, fear gripping her. Something was wrong. When she arrived at the clinic, she was escorted to a private office, where a gray-haired doctor in an expensive suit sat behind a polished mahogany desk. "Miss Reynolds," he started, clearing his throat, "there's been a mix-up, a grave mistake." Sophia's stomach nodded. "What do you mean, a mistake?" As soon as Adrian heard the doctor's hesitant words, a strange unease settled in his chest. He stepped further into the room, his sharp gaze locking onto the older man behind the desk. "What do you mean, a mistake?" Adrian asked, his voice dangerously calm. The doctor shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Sophia before clearing his throat. There was an error in the insemination process. The donor sample used was not the one Miss Reynolds selected. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "Then whose was it?" she asked, barely managing to get the words out. A heavy silence followed. The doctor exhaled, turning his gaze toward Adrian, dread clear in his eyes. "It was yours, Mr. Cole." Adrian froze. His entire body went rigid, his sharp features flickering with a rare moment of shock. His brow furrowed. "That's impossible," he said sharply. "I never." He stopped mid-sentence, his mind racing through the implications. Then, like a punch to the gut, realization slammed into him. The sperm samples. The two he had stored a year ago, one set aside for his future surrogate, and the other for his high school friend battling infertility. Both were meant to be kept under the strictest confidentiality. Neither should have been used without his explicit consent. His stomach twisted. Which one had been used? How? His voice was low, lethal. The doctor swallowed hard, rubbing a hand over his tired face. It was a clerical error. The patient scheduled for insemination had the same last name, Cole. Our technician mistakenly retrieved your sample instead of the intended donors. Adrian's jaw locked, his fists clenching at his sides. You're telling me that because of a paperwork mistake, this woman is now pregnant with my child? The doctor nodded solemnly. I deeply regret the error. The clinic is prepared to offer a private settlement for any. Adrian's glare could have cut through steel. A settlement? You think this is about money? His voice was quiet, but the threat in it was unmistakable. Sophia, still processing the bombshell, suddenly found her voice. So you're saying, she swallowed, her pulse hammering. I'm carrying his child? Adrian's piercing blue eyes snapped to her, the air between them charged with an intensity neither of them had prepared for. This was never supposed to happen. And yet there was no escaping the truth. She was carrying his child. Sophia's world tilted as the words echoed in her head. She tried to grasp what had just been said, but the sheer weight of the revelation felt like a tidal wave crashing over her. Adrian Cole? The Adrian Cole? The billionaire tech mogul whose face she had seen in countless business magazines? The room spun, her fingers gripping the armrest of the chair to steady herself. Adrian's piercing blue eyes bore into her, his expression cold, unreadable. His presence alone sucked the air from the room, his power radiating in a way that made her stomach tighten. She turned to the doctor, her voice shaking with rage. "So, you're telling me that my body was used as some sort of science experiment? That I was implanted with the sperm of a complete stranger, without my consent?" "Miss Reynolds, please," the doctor started, but Sophia shot up from her chair, her eyes blazing. "No. Don't you Miss Reynolds me. This is a massive violation of my rights." Her voice trembled with fury as she pointed a shaking finger at the doctor. "This is malpractice, fraud, and a personal violation of my body. I will sue this clinic to the ground." Adrian's lips curled in amusement, but his jaw remained tight. "For once, I agree with her," he said, turning his sharp gaze to the doctor. "How the hell does a clinic of this reputation make a mistake like this?" The doctor wiped the sweat off his forehead, his hands shaking. It was an unfortunate mix-up in the storage system. The labels must have. Mix-up? Adrian's voice dropped to a lethal growl. He leaned forward, placing both hands on the doctor's polished mahogany desk. "A mix-up is when you put sugar instead of salt in your coffee. This," he gestured toward Sophia, then himself, "is an absolute disaster." The doctor swallowed hard, his eyes darting between them. Sophia clenched her fists. "You had one job. What? And now I'm pregnant with the child of a man I don't even know? This is my life you're playing with." Adrian's face darkened. "And mine." Sophia's rage flared. She whipped around to glare at him. "Oh, don't act like you're the victim here. This is my body, my future. You can go back to your billionaire empire, but I'm the one carrying this child. And that child is mine," Adrian snapped, stepping closer to her. Sophia didn't back down. "Legally, this baby is mine. I didn't sign up for this, and I don't owe you anything." Adrian's eyes flashed dangerously. "You're not keeping me out of my own child's life." The room pulsed with tension. The doctor held up his hands. "Please, Mr. Cole, Miss Reynolds, let's not escalate this further. We are prepared to offer compensation." Sophia's head snapped toward him. "Are you bribing me? You think money fixes this?" Adrian let out a cold chuckle. "You think throwing money at this will make it disappear?" "We don't want trouble," the doctor pleaded. "You already have trouble," Sophia snapped. "Big trouble. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And trust me, I will sue." The doctor paled. "Miss Reynolds, please. A lawsuit could destroy the clinic, but we can make this right." Sophia shook her head. "There is no making this right." Adrian's gaze flicked toward her, his face unreadable. Then he turned to the doctor, his voice deathly calm. "You'll be hearing from my lawyers." And with that, he grabbed Sophia's arm and stormed out of the clinic with her. She yanked her arm away as soon as they reached the hallway. "Excuse me? What do you think you're doing?" He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Whether you like it or not, we're in this together now." Sophia let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, trust me, I do not like it." Adrian smirked. "Well, get used to it." The war had just begun. The moment Sophia left the clinic, her mind was in turmoil. How could this have happened? How could one mistake change her entire future? Adrian had barely spoken after that bombshell revelation, but the way he had looked at her, as if she was a problem to be fixed, made her blood boil. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello," she answered cautiously. "Sophia Reynolds." His voice was smooth, deep, and commanding. "We need to talk." "I think we already did," she snapped, still reeling from their encounter. "Not enough," he said. "I want to meet in person. Tonight." She considered hanging up, but a part of her needed answers. "Fine." Sophia arrived at a luxurious penthouse suite in Manhattan. The sheer extravagance of the place made her hesitate before knocking. The door swung open, revealing Adrian in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking effortlessly powerful. He gestured for her to sit. "I won't waste your time," he said, pouring a glass of whiskey but not offering her one. "This situation is complicated, but I need to be clear. I was never supposed to have a child this way." Sophia crossed her arms. "Neither was I." His jaw clenched. "I had a surrogate arranged. But since you're the one carrying my child, I need to make a proposition." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "What kind of proposition?" "I want full custody," he said flatly. "You'll be well compensated. You won't have to worry about anything financially." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "You want me to give up my baby?" "Our baby," he corrected, his voice cold. "And yes." Anger bubbled inside her. "Are you insane? I didn't plan for this, but I will not hand over my child like some business transaction." His expression darkened. "You don't understand the world I live in. I can give this child everything, wealth, security, opportunities you can't even imagine." Sophia shot up from her seat. "Money isn't everything, Mr. Cole." Before he could respond, she stormed out. Days passed, but Sophia's mind was in chaos. She wasn't naive. Adrian was a billionaire with immense power. He could make things very difficult for her. When her doorbell rang, she never expected to find Adrian standing there, looking almost defeated. "May I come in?" he asked. She hesitated before stepping aside. Once inside, he looked around her modest apartment before meeting her gaze. "I came to apologize." Sophia blinked. "Apologizing?" He exhaled. "I was wrong to approach you like that. I don't want to take the baby away from you." She folded her arms. "So what do you want?" He ran a hand through his hair. "A chance to be involved. I don't do relationships, but I can be a father. I can provide for you and the baby. No pressure, no force." Sophia studied him carefully. There was something vulnerable beneath his usual steel exterior. "I don't need your money, Adrian," she said softly. "But, if you're serious about being involved, we can figure something out." He nodded, his relief almost palpable. "Then let's take it one step at a time." Months passed, and their reluctant partnership turned into something unexpected. Adrian was always there, at doctor's appointments, researching pregnancy tips, even arguing with the OB/GYN about the best delivery options. Sophia found herself seeing sides of him she never expected. He was protective, sometimes overbearing, but undeniably devoted. And then there were the moments in between. The quiet conversations, the teasing remarks, the way his hand would linger a second too long on hers. One evening after a checkup, he drove her home but didn't leave immediately. "I want to ask you something," he said. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." His gaze locked onto hers. "Would you consider moving in with me? Just until the baby is born." She hesitated. "Why?" "To keep you safe. And comfortable," he added quickly. Sophia knew there was more to it, but against her better judgment, she agreed. Living with Adrian was an experience. His penthouse was ridiculously extravagant, but he made space for her, ensuring she had everything she needed. What she didn't expect was how easy it was to fall into a routine with him. He made her laugh, something she never imagined from the cold, brooding man she met months ago. He was fiercely protective, his touch lingering more often, his eyes darkening when she laughed at his jokes. One night as they sat in the living room, his hand absent-mindedly resting on her belly, she realized, this wasn't just about the baby anymore. And when he kissed her for the first time, slow and intense, she knew she was in trouble. But love was never part of Adrian's plan. Just when Sophia began to believe they could be a family, Adrian's ex, the woman the surrogacy was meant for, showed up. "You were never supposed to have his child," she spat, glaring at Sophia. "That baby was meant to be mine." Sophia turned to Adrian, hoping he would deny it. Instead, he looked conflicted. She felt her heart shatter. Without another word, she packed her bags and left. Days turned into weeks, and Adrian felt the weight of Sophia's absence more than he expected. He had built his life avoiding love, but Sophia had changed everything. It took him too long to realize what he truly wanted. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. Afraid of a life without Sophia. Afraid of not waking up to her sharp wit, her fiery spirit, and the way she made him feel alive. So, he showed up at her apartment one evening, looking more unguarded than ever before. Sophia opened the door, surprised to see him standing there, looking as if he had fought an internal battle and finally surrendered. "I was an idiot," he admitted, his voice raw with emotion. "I was scared. But I love you, Sophia." Her breath caught. "What?" "I love you," he repeated, stepping closer. "I don't just want my child. I want you. Both of you." Tears welled in her eyes. "You really mean that?" He took her hands, his grip firm but gentle. "Yes. I've spent my life believing I didn't need love, that I was better off alone. But then you came along and ruined all of that." His lips curved into a small smile. "And I'm grateful for it." Sophia hesitated, searching his eyes. Doubt flickered across her face as she whispered, "What about your ex?" Adrian didn't even blink. Still holding her hands, his grip warm and firm. "She is my past," he said, his voice steady. "And you are my present." Sophia's breath hitched as he gently squeezed her fingers, his gaze holding hers like an unshakable promise. For the first time, she believed him. Sophia let out a choked laugh, the last of her walls crumbling. "You're impossible. And you're everything I never knew I needed." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, flipping it open to reveal a breathtaking diamond ring. "I know we started this in the most unexpected way, but I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're mine." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Marry me, Sophia." Her heart pounded as she looked at the man who had once been a stranger but had somehow become her home. She didn't need time to think. "Yes," she breathed. And for the first time, she truly believed in forever. 6 months ago, they were strangers caught in a mistake. Now they were a family. And it was the most beautiful accident of all. Kindly support me by subscribing to my channel, like my video, and drop a comment. Your support means a lot.